This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. Lots going on. CPI numbers lower this week. Congress is still trying to pass that big, beautiful bill. So many things out there could be impacting you in retirement. We'll be bringing in later the team. We'll have Taylor Bevan. She'll be talking about what's troop. She's got my attention there because I'm not even sure what troop is when it comes time for your Medicare and what could be covered under that $2,000 maximum out-of-pocket cost. You won't want to miss at the bottom of the hour. We'll be talking with Taylor Bevan again with Market Medicare Advisors. Coming up later again in the show, we'll have Alex from Eidelman Law Firm, and he'll talk about how you can make things easier on your beneficiaries. And finally, of course, rounding out the end of the show, Joshua Sikora, CPA, our lead tax advisor here. He and I will be talking about this is the last time the IRS is going to accept paper checks. You won't want to miss that conversation again at the end of this show, but we've got lots to talk about in the first half. And one of the things I want to bring to your guys' attention is what I call the widow's tax trap. And I met with a gal this past week, bless her heart. She'd lost her husband January 4th of this year. And I had to have some tough conversations with her. And when you lose a spouse, you could pay more in taxes on less income. I'll make sure I repeat that. When you lose a spouse, you could pay more in taxes on less income. Now, when you lose a spouse, you don't just lose your partner. You're going to lose one of those Social Security checks. Maybe you're going to lose a pension check, depending on what survivor option the person elected or their spouse elected. And if you lose that Social Security check or you're down that income stream, down that pension, normally that's when I see people go tap those retirement accounts to make up for the loss of that Social Security check or the loss of that income. And when that happens, people are not aware of the tax consequences, or maybe a better way to say that is people are just not apprised to the ramifications that can happen to your taxes when you lose a spouse. And like I said, we see it all the time here. It's a shock because when the top of the 12% tax bracket this year for a married couple is around $97,000. But the top of the 12% tax bracket for a single person is half that. And if you're going to take money out of those retirement accounts and collect your Social Security, oftentimes it can push you as a single person into the 22% tax bracket. Now, we work with our tax advisors here in-house to make sure we're doing anything we can do to improve that or maybe lower the taxes in the future. But again, when they lose the spouse, they're now in a smaller tax bracket and paying more tax on less income. All right? There's ways to help reduce this tax burden. Meeting with a tax advisor would be a good first step. But if you only act after the fact, if you're not looking at these tax consequences down the road and before they run over you, it can cost you dearly. So if you don't have discussions like this with your advisor, ask yourself, what other areas could they be missing? What other things are not being addressed in your situation? Maybe better said, what dangers are out there lurking in your situation if you're not having tax, estate planning, healthcare conversations with your financial advisor or whoever's helping you with your retirement? And we do that day in, day out here. And if you want to schedule a 15-minute chat with us, do so by calling us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. That's our process that we go. It's a retirement evaluation process, other risks, and taxes. We take people through our process to find where are the gaps, where are the risks, where are the mistakes maybe that could be already happening, or where are future potential mistakes a possibility and how to avoid them. And if you don't have these conversations with your advisor on how to potentially reduce your future tax burdens, you might be running out of time. Because if Congress doesn't approve these tax cuts, which maybe they will, maybe they won't, but if they don't approve them by the end of this year, taxes will be going up. Okay, the 12% is set to go to 15%, the 22 up to 25. There's all going to be an increase in the percentages besides the 10% tax bracket. And then the standard deduction is going to get cut in half. So if Congress doesn't pass this tax reform, you could be paying more and more in taxes. And the tax rates, like I said, are scheduled to go up January 1st of 2026 if Congress cannot agree on this tax reform. But if they do agree on the tax reform, which is a possibility, you'll have another at least 3 or 4 more years with a Republican-controlled government to unwind some of these tax consequences, to do Roth conversions, to maybe harvest capital gain or harvest your losses and maybe sell out of some of your positions that you have gains in and reset your cost basis. There's so many tax strategies, or there's so many options that are out there. Which one could be right for you? If you want to have that conversation and figure out what might be an attractive option to lower your future tax burden, again, reach out and get on our calendar just to have a phone call. 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or, of course, you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com or our parent website, marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We're going to go and bring in Larry Clefcorn, an advisor with Market Advisory Group Wichita, to talk about a meeting that he had this past week. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And I was talking earlier in the first segment about how I met with this lady that had lost her spouse this year. Her husband passed away almost like the first 3 or 4 days in the year. You just don't know sometimes who to turn to. You don't know what those consequences could be, and that's why we work together as this team to help people realize these things are happening to them. And we've got Larry Clefcorn here, an advisor with Market Advisory Group Wichita. And you have a story of someone that from when you originally met them long ago.
Yeah.
But tell us, this guy was a little maybe skeptical of the whole process.
Highly skeptical of us. However, he did make an appointment, and he was originally at one of our workshops that we do around the metro area. Mm-hmm. And from the very moment that I walked up to him, he was at the snack bar, and
in our lobby, right?
In our lobby,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
Right in the waiting area. People are always impressed when they see that.
Well, we got to have some snacks.
That's right. So, as I had introduced myself and I took him to the meeting room, we no more than got through the door, and he said, before I sit down, I'd like to know how much this is going to cost me.
That's a common question we'll get a lot of times is, what's this cost? Are you going to charge me for this meeting? Well, what about the next meeting? And that's not how we typically get paid.
Right. And, I told him, I said that he can be assured that this is not going to cost him anything, because I'm telling you that, and 2, I don't know if I have anything to help you with.
It's true. Until we get to know someone, we don't know if we can help them, or we don't know if they're a good fit for us. And that's kind of what that first introduction meeting is all about, seeing if they're a good fit for us and seeing if we can help them.
Yes. And, so he eases into the conversation, and I don't know if I said it before, but it was about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And, I told him, I said, I think the most important thing for you to know right now is that at any point, if you feel that you're uncomfortable or you don't want to discuss it any further, or you're just that worried that I'm going to sneak a bill in front of you, that's okay. You are free to go at any time, no hard feelings.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure that surprised him.
that did, because he was expecting
The hard sell.
He was.
And that's just not how it works.
No. Mm-mm.
You can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. Well, you can, or you can maybe drown the horse, but
Yeah.
no, that's not a style that is very attractive for anyone. It's not how we'd want to be treated. It's not how we treat others.
That's exactly right. And so now we can skip ahead. It's been 4 years he's been client,
Happy client.
a happy client who has used all the services, and he admits he thought that there was going to be some kind of contractual annual fee associated with our help. And because we have so much, to offer under this one roof, and he was just convinced that there would be something
Like an annual membership fee or something.
Yes.
Like a subscription. Not.
Yes.
I mean, we as fiduciaries we bill, on the stocks or the equities and the ETFs, all those. We bill that asset fee. But there's not another fee to go talk to the Medicare guy.
right.
There's not another fee if we pull in the tax guy and he answers some tax questions. It's all covered under that fee there.
That's right. And then if they get free consultations with legal and with tax people, and the thing about it with him is that he was expecting he would probably have to sign some kind of annual contract, but I said, well, you don't know yet, and it might not sink in until you really experience it, but we actually give you money. We actually help pay to have your taxes done.
It's like a cost sharing thing. So
It is.
if there's a it's kind of like going to Costco or Sam's. The more you buy, the more you have, the more volume discount you can get. But if you're not under $1 million, if you have over $1 million, we're taking care of your estate plan and your tax return, all those other things.
Yeah.
If you have under $1 million, we help give discounts to those
Yes.
other people, which oftentimes offsets the majority of the costs.
Yes, it does. And I was right when I said it might not sink in right now, it might not settle in, but when it came time for him to have his taxes done, he was very surprised. And then also, I am recommending to my clients more and more in the first session, do you have an estate plan?
Yeah.
You need to start thinking about that. You need to get your thoughts together, because that's something that the time has come to not put that off any longer.
And acting as a fiduciary, acting in the individual that you're helping's best interest, it's good that you're calling that out. You're having that hard conversation, because a lot of probably financial advisors won't ask the people they're helping probably questions like that, you think?
Right. And why is that? Because they can't offer it. They don't offer it, I probably should say. They don't want to share the cost for their clients to go out and get that help. They don't really want to even talk to the estate planner that they're going to.
They don't know what language to use. They don't know how to describe their situation.
And their financial advisor doesn't want to have that conversation on the phone with them and have to tell them about what they're doing, because he's afraid that the attorney might say that, that's not the best way of doing things. And I think you might want to rethink that. So most advisors are, they're actually not recommending and pushing them to go ahead and get start thinking about their estate planning.
I ask a lot of people that will come in here and either they watch our TV show, listen to the radio show, come to our classes, watch our webinars, whatever, however, or referred by a friend, however we meet them. When I'll ask people if they have an advisor previously, most of the time they do. And I'll ask them, well, did your advisor help you with your estate plan or your tax plan? And I'll hear a common story. They get referred to someone.
Yeah.
But then I'll ask them, well, okay, that advisor referred you to another professional. Out of curiosity, did that advisor go with you to help explain your situation?
Yeah.
I've never had anyone say their advisor. I'm sure there is, but it's not a common thing.
That's right. It's not. And so our clients get that benefit where we can talk. And I've said this before, that, and I just think it bears repeating, that when we are helping a client and they're here and they see that's just one part of it. Much of what they don't see is really invaluable to them, and that is it's in between meetings that we're having with them, or it's leading up to a review that we have conversations in the background with these different groups.
And it would be very much, I don't want to say impossible, about said impossible. It'd be a challenge to have that collaboration with those different professionals, the attorney, the CPA, the advisor, the Medicare or healthcare advisor, if everyone's not around the same table.
Right.
It puts all that responsibility on the retiree's shoulders, which then you and I both know allows for opportunities for things to fall between the cracks. Things get missed. Opportunities don't get taken advantage of. There's a lot of consequences because the responsibility is all falling on the retiree's shoulders.
Yeah. And then the one other thing I want to introduce into this is that we now have a life and long-term care
Advisor. Yeah.
We have an advisor that will help them, and that really does include that person, that advisor, and the person managing the money to work together.
And, if you're asking yourself, my advisor doesn't really ask me these questions, or maybe you're one of those individuals or couples that have been referred to a CPA or an estate planning attorney from your financial advisor. But what could you be missing? Anything or lots of things? Well, how are you going to know? Normally, we find that people find out when disaster struck and it's too late. But if you're frustrated or maybe worried or even concerned that you might have gaps in your plan, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us by phone at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters M-A-G for Market Advisory Group, and then the word report. Or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com or Market Advisor Group. You can book that there as well. Well, stay tuned. We'll be coming right back, and we'll continue this conversation with Larry Clefcorn because we've got a listener question you're going to take.
Yeah.
Should the person pay off their mortgage with a withdrawal from their retirement accounts? Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And speaking of ever-changing landscape, you won't want to miss, towards the end of the show, we'll be talking with Joshua Sikora, lead tax advisor with Market Tax Services. He'll be talking about how the government's no longer going to take a paper check. You're going to have to do all those quarterly estimates online. But we're continuing this conversation here with financial advisor Larry Clefcorn with Market Advisory Group Wichita. We've got a listener question, and guys out there, if you want to submit your own listener question, you can go to our website at retirehour.com. If you put in your mailing address, we always send you a little thank you for submitting that question. We like to thank our viewers and listeners out there for their questions. And this question comes from James. James A is his last initial. Is it better to pay off your mortgage or to keep your money in your 401k? We get this question from time to time, right?
Yes, we do. And in a number of different forms.
That's true. I would agree with that. But to answer James's question, we're going to have a lot more details and facts that need to come to the conversation before we're going to be able to give a really good answer here.
Yes.
But what are some of the things you do consider to help James kind of walk through this? Is it better to pay off your mortgage or keep your money in your 401k?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, James, how much is the payoff for your mortgage?
Yeah, $5,000 could be different than $50,000 or $150,000 or $300,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So how much do you owe?
I noticed that, James, you're thinking of using your 401k. Is that the only option that you have? I mean, do you have possibly some other monies out there that you've already paid taxes on, and it might at least be less taxes on a small portion of it instead of the whole thing?
Sure, because how the tax brackets work. But if he's got a mortgage that's 3% or less, because I've got clients that got mortgages in the 2s.
Yeah.
But if he's got a mortgage that's under 3%, he can go get in a money market 5%. Mm-hmm. And if you're taking this money out of your retirement account, You absolutely were hitting the nail on the head there, Larry. He hasn't paid taxes on that money.
Right.
So if he's married and him and his wife are already in the 22% tax bracket. Well, you take out a large withdrawal. Let's just even numbers, easy numbers. Take out $100,000 out of your IRA, 401k. In federal taxes, you're going to owe potentially $22,000 just in federal taxes.
Right.
I don't think probably someone that has a 2% mortgage that owed maybe $100,000 on their house, they might not even pay that much in interest over time, depending on the time frame. And those are all considerations that come in there. And of course, what if his income changes? If his income goes up, it could be even more expensive than 22%.
That's right. I like to ask them this for consideration. What if instead of using all of your, and this is only something to think about, instead of doing a payoff, one big payoff, would it be helpful to you if you just made your payments out of your monies?
Out of your retirement account.
So every month, it's your saved up money making that payment. You talk about a difference in the tax outcome. That can make a huge difference.
Well, and I've got a similar situation. Let's call her Shelly. Shelly's single. She's got about $200,000 to her name, and she owes about $100,000 on her house. But I told her to get $100,000 out of her retirement account because she's in the 22% tax bracket with her pension and Social Security. To get $100,000 out, she's going to pay more in taxes probably than she is on interest on this. Not to mention, it's also going to zap her nest egg and take almost 50% of her nest egg. So when emergencies come up in the future, she's not going to have that money.
That's right.
But
Can
when
only use it once.
And then James, finally, the last point I'd like to point out is if you pay off your house, unfortunately, because of property taxes and insurance, you never really truly own your house in some regards. And you have to keep the property taxes going. You have to keep the insurance. Sometimes what you have in that payment, monthly payment, could be mostly property taxes and insurance, and you never know. But just like James's question, is it better to pay off your mortgage or keep it in your 401k? What James needs to really do is get tax advice before he does anything.
Yes.
And if you don't have someone that can give you tax advice, ask yourself, how do you know you're making the best decision for yourself? Because most people don't understand the tax consequences when they take monies out of their accounts, but they get a rude awakening when they do their taxes the next year. And you don't want those surprises, right? You don't want to owe taxes and have that be a nasty surprise at all.
No, and especially when it includes penalties.
That's true. It could even add penalties. We don't know how old James is. Another key factor we need to know here.
Yeah.
So many details, but think about this. If you don't have a trusted source that can give you answers to these questions, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters M-A-G for Market Advisory Group Report. We'd love to have that chat with you by phone, wherever you're at. Or if you're ready for an in-person visit as well, you can come to any of our offices. We have 2 offices in Wichita and 2 offices in Kansas City. We'll stay tuned. We'll be right back talking with Taylor Bevan with Market Medicare Advisors on what is TROOP. I mean, she's going to teach me something because I've not heard that word before, and what it has to do with your prescription drug plan on Medicare. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement, not just the investments, because I know that gets a lot of attention, but the tax consequences, the estate planning ramifications, and of course those healthcare consequences. Those healthcare decisions, they can be confusing if you don't have the right information. I was talking a little bit earlier in the show about how I met with a gal that had been widowed recently this year, and she was telling me that her income had to stay under an amount because she was getting kind of this grant to help pay for a medication. And I thought to myself, I hear from my Medicare people all the time that there's a $2,000 max out of pocket on that. Why do you need a grant? I thought this was all going to be taken care of with the Inflation Reduction Act, right, Taylor?
That sounds nice.
Not the way it works, right?
If only it was that straightforward, black and white, if you will. But you kind of have to read all of the verbiage because it is covered prescriptions.
The details. The devil's always in the details, isn't it?
So
this medication that she must be taking is probably not covered under the $2,000 maximum out-of-pocket thing, is what you're saying?
it's not necessarily covered under the $2,000 maximum out of pocket. It's the plan that she has chosen is not covering it.
I think I'm following along, but tell me more.
I mean, this is why we encourage our clients to come in and review their prescription plans during the October open enrollment, because those formulas can change. And if you're on a specific type of medication, especially those insulins, they can get expensive. And your plan decides that it's no longer going to cover that. You can't use a different insulin that they do cover because it doesn't work for you. You're going to be paying for that out of pocket.
So there are people out there, even though it was in the news, we've talked about it at classes, we've talked about it on TV, talked about it on the show, how the maximum out of pocket is $2,000. That's not really a true number. That troop. Tell me about what this troop is. Like TROOP is troop?
Yeah, and so that stands for your true maximum out of pocket. So you have to make sure that your prescriptions and the dosages and even maybe the type, because capsules are different from tablets. So we have to be very careful, when we're putting those prescriptions in for you to review and make sure that they're going to be covered, that we have the right information. And then we make sure that all of those prescriptions that you need to be on are going to be covered in some way, shape, or form on that plan, whether it be a tier 1 or a tier 4. As long as it's covered, then it's under the umbrella of the true maximum out-of-pocket cost.
Now, what happens when maybe your prescriptions don't change year over year, but your plan does? You might need to review that during open enrollment to make sure you're going to be covered the next year correctly, or the best you could be covered.
Right. A lot of times people, they're like, nothing, my medication is all the same. I should be good to go, right? But it's not necessarily if something changed for you. It's what has changed for maybe the plan you're on. What did they change? What new laws with this, just like with this $2,000 restriction or cap. It changed a lot for a lot of the companies out there. They all kind of revamped their prescription drug plans. So they're allowed to change it every year, which is why it doesn't matter if nothing changed for you. They could just decide that they want to not cover a drug anymore or make it in a higher tier or whatever it may be.
Sometimes I find the preferred pharmacy switches.
Yeah.
1 year you might use Dillon's, and the next year they might want you using Walgreens or CVS or another pharmacy stuff. So that can change on people too. And so many things can be impacted here. So bottom line, if someone's paying more than $2,000 out of their pocket for their prescriptions when they're on Medicare, it probably wasn't a covered prescription for Medicare.
Bottom line, they need to come in and have it reviewed.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But yes.
So do you know what any of these medications that are off the top of your head or that are not covered under this? Or
It's plan specific. So just because plan A, purple, doesn't cover it doesn't mean plan green does. I mean, one might not.
Interesting. It's not up to Medicare deciding that those prescriptions are covered. It's up to the insurance company deciding if those are covered prescriptions?
Yeah, they can decide the level of coverage, what tier they fall into, and there are some requirements. A lot of them are required to cover at least 2 different types of insulin, but they don't have to cover all. And there are several, types of insulin out there for people struggling with diabetes. And as somebody who had to do that for a brief period, you pretty much have to go with the insulin that works for you. And if that's not covered on the plan you're on, those pens are really expensive.
And insulin's just one example of all the types of medications.
Yes, that's the most common one that people kind of know what it's for and have heard of. And it's also a hot topic of how much it costs for people, unfortunately.
And so if you're not staying up to date on that out there, the message you want to get is people need to review this yearly, because the laws change, insurance plans change, people's health changes, their prescription can change, blah, 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 change.
Yes.
It's the only certainty in life, death, change, and taxes, right?
Yep. It's fluid.
It is very fluid. And if you guys aren't getting that help with your prescription drug plans or your healthcare situation, if you're not taking a look at that on a yearly basis, what could you be missing? Something? Nothing? A lot of money? Who knows until you take a look at it. And if you're ready to come in, go ahead and schedule that appointment. But if you have questions about your situation, you can schedule that 15-minute phone call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can go on over to the website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back right after this with Alex Robinson talking about how to make things easier for your beneficiaries when you pass away. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And we've been focusing on estate planning lately. It's been, I guess, a hot topic out there that get a lot of questions on it. But we've got Alex Robinson, an estate planning attorney with Eidelman Law Firm. And you want to talk this week about a story how someone that was in a family, they had a sibling pass away, like a brother or sister, and they got this letter. There's stuff out there, but tell us what's going on in this story, because oftentimes I feel people don't have the right estate plan, or maybe a better way to say that is they're not as covered in the areas as they think they are, and there's gaps there because they may have did a plan 5, 6, 7, maybe even longer, 10, 15, 30 years ago, God forbid, and their life has probably changed on that, so it causes a lot of issues. But this is someone that lost a sister, you said?
Yeah, I'm working with someone who lost their sister unexpectedly. They didn't know that they were named as the executor.
Oh.
So that was a surprise.
Yeah. You got a lot of work to do you didn't know about.
And then on top of that, the sister didn't have, a list of what she owned and where these assets were located. And so she's already dealing with grief. I call it grief brain. It makes everything harder to deal with. It makes you forget everything. A lot of times if I'm talking to someone who's lost a loved one, I'm talking with them 3 or 4 times before things stick. And that's not because they're dumb. It's not because they're stupid. It's just they're dealing with this really huge event in their life, and it makes things a lot more difficult to process.
So how could this sister have made it easier on her beneficiaries or on her heirs? I think probably the first thing that comes to my mind is she should have told her sister or asked her sister, will you be my executor?
Yeah.
Instead of just, it's your problem.
Yep, exactly.
But what could have helped in this situation make things easier for the beneficiaries?
Yeah, I think what the most important thing is keeping an up-to-date list of what you own. What I see a lot of times, especially in our clients who are retired, is they don't even know what they own. So when they come in to see me, that's the perfect opportunity to kind of do a survey and say, okay, what do I own? What's out there? Where are the accounts where I put some money in, 25 years ago when I worked at this one job? I don't even know if it's there anymore, but now's the time to go check, because in the example I'm giving you, she got a letter in the mail from someone saying, hey, we're sorry your sister died. Here's an account. And that really stressed her out, because it's like, there's this account out there that I didn't know about. What else am I missing? So you're dealing with grief. And on top of that, now you're dealing with the stress of, are there things that I'm missing? Am I supposed to be doing something else? How do I find out where these things are?
And a lot of times, I'll if we're in similar circumstances, or we'll have something there, sometimes people will say, we just keep finding things. We just keep finding things. And sometimes that's, I don't want to say a good thing. Sometimes while the money might be a pleasant surprise, it can be hard to figure out, well, what forms does that company need? Or what does this need to do? God forbid, does it need to be probated? Because you guys tell me all the time, if an asset needs to be probated, on average, the expense is anywhere from 3 to 6%.
Right.
And if it's $1 million asset, that's $30,000 to $60,000 gone like that.
Right.
And if they don't have their beneficiaries titled correctly, I think that's a really big gap in a lot of times people's quote unquote estate plan.
Right.
But they don't understand that the pretty documents that they have that they call their estate plan, if their beneficiaries on their other accounts aren't correct, it's not going to work probably too well.
Yeah, I mean, your estate plan isn't a one and done thing. It's not like you get it done, you shake hands, you walk out the door. Yeah, you put it on the wall, and that's the end. As life happens, your estate plan is going to change. One of the things that's very stressful is mom or dad says, hey, just so you know, this account is going to be yours. And then for whatever reason, they need to use that account. They don't tell, that sibling or that child or whoever it is, sorry, just so you know, that account's not here anymore. So this person is kind of counting on those assets. They think that account is there. Now all of a sudden it's not there. They're mad at, whoever's the executor or the trustee saying like, well, where'd these assets go? And now there's kind of a fight brewing between people because mom and dad didn't say, hey, just so you know, mom had surgery. We needed this money to pay for the surgery. So if you're not up to date on where your accounts are, what's going on, and those types of things, it can lead to stress and grief and fights between family, and it gets ugly quick.
Are you saying money can change people?
Yeah, especially when you add grief on top of it. I think a lot of times it really is the grief, and when you then add money and stress about money on top of that, it's a really toxic mixture that can go south quick.
I see it happen all the time. So you'll hear people. I was teaching a class this week, and someone came up to me after the class, and they said, and this is why I said, you hear people say this, well, I want a trust, because a trust will take care of everything, and a trust won't go through probate. True, right?
To the extent that the assets are titled in the name of the trust.
That was the kicker. So you can have those pretty papers, like you said, or you can get it all done, and like if you want to frame it, put it on the wall. If you're that proud of it, cool. But if you're not implementing the plan,
right.
And that's where I think there's a big disconnect, and why I mention all the time the retirement system in America is broken, because the retiree, the client, has to go to the estate planning attorney, has to relay all their situation to the attorneys. The attorneys then meet with them, draft up some pretty documents, send them to review, and they execute them. But if they don't go back to their advisor, if they don't go to their banks, their real estate, the accounts, and title that asset correctly or set it up, then all the assets to get in the trust might have to be probated, and then you've cost yourself again that $30,000 to $60,000 expense.
Right, and we help with all of that. So we can't go to your bank for you, but we give you step-by-step instructions on what you need to do to make that easier.
Well, if we're their financial advisor, you can always go to their financial advisors and make that real easy.
Yeah, for retirement accounts, it's incredibly easy, because I just go over to you and say, hey Matt, here's what they want to do,
and we get it done. But so many times, I think people don't understand that they don't have all the gaps covered in their estate plan. And that's what you guys do all the time. You guys walk people through their situation.
Absolutely. Everyone's situation is different, and so we make sure we cover all those gaps.
Well, I hope you're going to be able to help this sister that lost her sister, but it's always tragic when that happens. But again, the three certainties in life are change, death, and taxes. And if you're not prepared for that, it can cost you or your loved ones dearly. And if you don't know if you have the right plan for yourself, or if you're worried you could have some gaps in your estate plan, just reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us by phone at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be rounding out the show with Joshua Sikora talking about how you better not send the federal government any more paper checks. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this. Well, welcome back in. A lot of things going on with the government changing, the new legislation potentially being passed. But we've got Joshua Sikora here with Market Tax Services. This is an executive order. This is an EO that Trump signed that says they don't want the government issuing or receiving checks anymore.
That's right. I mean, kind of think about it a little bit from your individual perspective. When you send somebody a check, you're putting a little piece of paper that's got your bank account information in the mail, hoping nobody intercepts it in the meantime, reads it, does funny stuff with it, and then trusting the government to process it all right. I don't have that much trust. I'll be honest.
Maybe you have trust issues. Maybe we need to go to counseling.
But you know what? In that last segment, I really thought you were going to introduce market counseling services.
No, we're not. I don't think. Not for us. But maybe, not today, at least.
Not today.
Not today. So this is an executive. Why do you say this is the last quarter you can send in your?
Yeah, because starting September 1st, any interactions you have with the federal government in terms of making or receiving payments has to be done electronically. And now, so, people who are maybe self-employed or they tend to owe a lot on their tax return, they'll make estimated payments quarterly. The next one's due June 15th. And then come the 1st of September, everything has to be done electronically. So if you're somebody who's been making those estimated payments, you now need to figure out how to do that online. It's really not complicated. But the point of the situation is we meet a lot of people who do make estimated payments who probably don't need to. And that's where tax planning often comes in. We'll talk, the stuff that steals the headlines is the cool stuff like Roth conversions and loss harvesting. Those sound really cool. But sometimes the conversation is, here's everything going on. I'm owing every year. How do I fix this? And then that's where we sit down and just look at their big picture and say, okay, if we tweak this knob here, flip that lever over there, now you've got withholdings more appropriate to your tax situation. And so you're getting at a tax answer closer to whatever your preference is. Some people like to get big refunds. Some people like to owe a lot for whatever reason. Some people like to be right in the middle at that break-even point. And so in that tax planning process, we can sit down, talk about where they want to end up, and then adjust things so that they end up there.
But most of the time, people don't know what they're going to owe in taxes until they do their taxes.
That's right. So that's why it's great that we sit down, we have these conversations, so we figure out what their taxes are going to look like, because we talk about what their income is going to look like.
So we have to do that. We don't have to. Well, we do have to do it before the end of the calendar year, because
Yes.
normally there's not a lot you can do once December 31st rolls around.
Right.
Well, we start doing tax planning October-ish.
Yeah,
We really
I've got a
get
few
into-
September appointments actually already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So I've been making the appointments with my clients already for the fourth quarter.
I
so-
noticed.
Well, hey, that's what you do, right?
That's right.
So, but we're.
And so what we sit, that's okay. So when we sit down and we start talking about this, we plan out what their income is going to look like. So then we can see, okay, are they going to owe? Are they getting refunds? And if that's not the answer they're wanting, we we change what's going on to get to that answer they're looking for. Typically, for a lot of people we meet with, they just want to get to that break-even point. Owe a little bit, get a little bit of refund. They just want to be near that break-even point. And so with that tax planning, we can then adjust these levers and get to that answer they're looking for.
Well, and I opened the show with talking about a widow that I met with this past week. She lost her husband January 4th of this year. Having that hard conversation with her, saying this year during tax planning, you have the top of the 12% tax bracket's about $97,000. You get the standard deduction of 30 plus maybe if you're over 65. You've got some dollars left, but next year those dollars are going to shrink and you're going to pay higher taxes on less money faster.
Yeah, which I hate having that conversation because it just feels so wrong. But we have to make people aware of these things because they need to strike while the opportunity exists.
Or maybe maximize their options for themselves, because you're going to be down that Social Security check, you're going to be down that pension check.
Yep.
You and I see normally that's when people go tap those retirement accounts even more. But the problem is those IRAs, those 401ks, what's the problem there?
Those RMDs keep clicking along, and so now they've got more income forced into smaller brackets.
And then oftentimes, anytime they take a withdrawal, they could be pushing themselves up into those higher tax brackets, changing the tax on their Social Security. It goes on and on.
And then when people try to tackle this all on their own, last year I was in that 12% bracket like you were saying there, but now they're widowed, and so at 12 is actually more like a 22. Maybe they're flirting with the 24% even. And they withhold at the wrong rates, and now they've got this big balance due, so then they're pulling more out, and it just forms into this spiral. It'd be great if there was a better way.
Well, there is a better way. Working with you and an advisor that works with you helps give people clarity on this situation.
That's right. And then that clarity, one, then they have the tools to make the right decisions. But then two, there's an emotional benefit. They don't have to be worrying about it all the time. We just met with some with clients at the deal we went to. Yeah. And then they were just talking about how much they appreciated the fact that they knew we were worrying about this stuff, so then we didn't have to worry about it.
So you're talking about our trip to the Virgin Islands, why I've been gone. We took our clients that wanted to go, we took them down there and had a good time because we turned 10 years old this year. So you were getting that feedback from them down there.
That's right. That they just how much they appreciated it, not having to worry about it because he knew I was worrying about it for him.
You don't think the open bar at dinner had anything to do with that conversation?
Maybe it made him more likely to make say those nice things.
Well, if people don't get tax planning, they don't know if they're maximizing the tax code for their situation.
That's right. Or if they're even have things dialed into using the tax code to where they want to end up at the end of the year. They don't know until it's already too late, and then they're just grumbling about it.
So if you're thinking to yourself out there, I don't get tax planning with my investments, with my money, with my situation, wonder what we could be missing. If you're asking yourself that or similar question, reach out and give us schedule a 15-minute chat with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com or, of course, marketadvisorygroup.com. We've got a scheduler there. Again, you can schedule an in-person visit in any of our offices across Wichita or Kansas City. And, of course, again, that first introduction, we'd love to chat with you by phone. Well, we hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. We'll see you back here next week on Retire Hour.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.